show.
Welcome to episode 78 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. The Leafs are 2-2 after 4 games. They are coming off a win over the Ottawa Senators and a brutal 4-2 loss to the Arizona Coyotes, where a lot of shit happened. And we are going to go over everything that happened in the Coyotes game. We're going to talk about the Sens game. We're going to talk about the play of Auston Matthews. This is going to be a very juicy episode. And I promise you want to stay tuned until the very end. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, you have the nerve to ask me how I'm doing after last night's game. I was actually going to ask you, your last name ends in a vowel and you're from Woodbridge, so you know someone who can fix the drywall in my basement, right? Because I got angry
I
last
got some
night.
people who can help you out with that.
Amazing. But we'll get to my rage a little bit later in the show. In the meantime, episode 78 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast. Shout out goes to one of my favorite Maple Leafs and soon to be added to the jersey collection is TJ Brody. I almost said Tyson Barrie. It's like a Leafs thing. We always want to say Tyson Barrie. TJ Brody, who signed with his boyhood team a few years back and who I think's been a nice player, man. You can always depend on him to be a stable force back there. What I like about him is that, or the point I was making about Brody is that sometimes you just don't notice him, and that's a good thing because it means he's just holding the fort, getting the puck out, doing what he's supposed to do. Like I always say, just give me six Brodies. And we're good to go. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
I love TJ Brody, man. He's so dependable. I've gushed about him on previous shows. He just does his job. He's a great skater, moves the puck. He's good in his own end. Give us 6 TJ Brodies for real, man.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take 2 right now. Or 3. 1 for Hall, 1 for Muzzin.
Yeah, I'll take 1.5 TJ Brodies at this point.
Yeah.
Unreal. All right, man. Let's get right into this. Talk about these games that we watched over the last few days, starting with the Senators game. So the Leafs were coming off a win, hosting the Ottawa Senators. They outshoot the Sens 32-28. They win 3-2 on a game-winning goal from Justin Hall, of all people.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the wildest things I've ever seen. Justin Hall, of all people, who we'll get into the shit that he did in the Coyotes game, giving the puck away at the end of the game and essentially blowing it. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened in that game. But first, we'll start with the good with Justin Hall. He scores the game-winning goal. The Leafs win 3-2. Another solid performance from Ilya Samsonov. So what are your thoughts on that win over the Sens, Lepore?
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's early in the season. A win is a win. It wasn't their best performance, but funny how it's okay when you get the W. It's a scope of everything that's concerning. With the Sens, I got to say, it was exactly what we said that game would be. It was going to be Toronto in the offensive end with the puck, snapping it around, and then Ottawa firing back the other way. And again, because Ottawa has talent, they can beat you. I was wrong in the way that I thought it was going to be a high-scoring affair, and it wasn't.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I was calling for the 7-5s everywhere. But the game was kind of dull. I mean, Toronto, I thought, again, offensive zone possession, they look good. They moved it around. But to be fair, Ottawa had their chances. If I remember correctly, Ottawa had more low slot scoring chances than Toronto did over the course of the game. And if you watch it, it's just like the microcosm of what this team is. They will have possession. They will have the puck in the other team's end, but they got 2 forwards down low. You see the defenseman engage, and typically it's Riley. And then what happens? You have a 2-on-1 coming the other way or a fast break coming the other way, and you can get killed. And I often say on this show that I hate to criticize coaches for actually coaching because I'm not a coach, and I don't think many of us have the know-how to question NHL level coach. But it just seems like Keefe in his style was flirting with fire, and that game is the perfect example where you're playing an inferior opponent, but an opponent that has talent, and you can have all the possession in the world, but all it takes is one mistake, one chip off the glass, and you're in a lot of trouble. And Bruno, I'll ask you this, because I know the answer of a lot of people. If you were playing the Leafs, is that not the style you would play? Like to try to lure them in and slingshot back?
That's absolutely the style I would play, because I've been talking about this. I mean, this is our 78th episode. I've talked about this plenty of times. You go back to all the teams in the playoffs who have beaten the Leafs, especially Columbus and Montreal, and honestly, even Tampa. Like, all of these teams play a very similar style to beat the Leafs. You know that they're always going to have the puck. You beat them on the counterattack. You wait for them to make a mistake. And that's how you kill this team, because they get super aggressive at times where they engage the D. All of a sudden, you're seeing Morgan Riley, below the other team's goal line. You're seeing Justin Hall pinching in. They do this all the time where they get like ultra aggressive. And all you got to do is wait for them to make a mistake and you can pounce. And I think the book is out on this team at this point, because Keefe has now been in charge for, what has it been, 3 seasons? So I think every team knows exactly how to kill this Leaf team.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we don't have the goaltending to bail us out of those situations. We can say, yeah, we'll take our chances because we have so-and-so back there who will bail us the fuck out. No, sorry. Funny. Like, the one thing I'll say about this team early on, predictable. Could these games, like losing to Montreal, we all had it in our stomach, everyone telling us we were going to win. Montreal was winless in the preseason, but they come out with a decent effort against Washington. I thought they played a pretty tight game. So they kind of countered their bad game with a good game, as Toronto typically does. And then there is the game against Ottawa. They could have went either way. As I said, Ottawa had a lot of scoring chances, and I didn't think Toronto created that much anyway. Toronto had a lot of attempts on goal, but a lot was blocked. A lot went high and wide, which is another story for this year. But they were able to pull out with a W. And then there's the game last night. And I said to someone this morning about, and I'll say, and I'm not just saying this now, I was nervous about last night's game, but I wouldn't have been had they lost to the Sens. Because I just figured, this team 2-1, it looks like they're going to be 3-1 after a kind of like fluky loss to Montreal. They're going to be feeling overly confident. But had they lost to Ottawa, they would have got that little slap in the face that they needed for a game against Arizona. And they got Dallas coming, and Dallas is 3-0. So I think they've only allowed 3 goals in 3 games. So again, hopefully this was a slap in the face. But what's a piss off for Leafs fans is at this point, and again, I'll ask you, Bruno, should this team need a slap in the face? When these kids were
pisses me off beyond belief, Lepore. And you said it. It's that this team has been so predictable. Like, how do you come into this season after everything that's happened over the last few years with this team? How do you come out and play like absolute shit against Montreal, even though they almost won that game? And then, okay, it's like you said, good effort against Washington. They get the win against Ottawa. And then they lose again to Arizona. They lost twice to the Coyotes last season.
See that stat about the home games? We haven't beaten since 2002.
Have not beaten the Coyotes at home in regulation since 2002 in 20 years.
12 games, 10-0-2. Like that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
It's crazy. No, and that's the thing. It's like this team shouldn't need a slap in the face to get its shit together right now. That's what is so frustrating, I think, to everybody in Leafs Nation. They've already had 25 slaps in the face over the last 3 seasons. All the playoff exits, all the terrible losses against inferior opponents. And, people can be watching this right now and say, you guys are still overreacting. We're only 4 games in. If Muzzin doesn't give away the puck against Montreal, the Leafs at least get a point out of that they probably win that game. Yeah. If Hall doesn't give away the puck against Arizona, we're going to talk about the stupid hand pass. If that doesn't happen, the Leafs could be 4-0 right now.
Yeah, totally.
But we're still seeing the same issues with this team, Lepore.
But last night's game, I made the point too, even if they would have won, I'd still be pissed off. Had let's say that goal counted and then they would have scored an OT, I still would have been like, this team fucking sucks. It would have been my answer at the end of the game. So it's got nothing to do with the result at this point.
Yeah, it's just becoming so frustrating because you think that you're going to see a different Leafs team. Like, you're convinced at the start of every season it's going to be a different team, a team that comes out ready to play on time. How many times have we heard that with this hockey team?
Do you feel maybe you mentioned like this team and like the slaps in the face? Do you think maybe it's worked the other route in the way that they've had these playoff disappointments? So the team's not motivated for the regular season because they know their talent will get them into the playoffs. They know their talent will get them there. They know guys are going to start scoring. Like Matthews has not been good. And I mean, I think it's fair to say or fair to assume that he will get better. He's shooting at like 5 or 6%. That will improve. But they're just, we've been through this now. How many times it's been proven to us that it doesn't matter. And I'm not making an excuse for them. I'm just trying to gauge a mindset of this group right now because they do not look good. They do not look motivated at all.
It's time for a quick break to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Betstamp. If you're a sports bettor, you absolutely need Betstamp. You have to go to the App Store and download it immediately because it is so great for line shopping. Betstamp allows you to line shop for the most valuable odds on each wager and therefore maximize your potential profit as a bettor. So if you're betting on the Toronto Maple Leafs, you can't just go to one sportsbook. You got to look across the board and see who's offering you the most value, whether that's on the money line or the puck line. And Betstamp puts that all together and makes it so easy for you. And also the importance of having multiple sportsbooks. By having multiple sportsbook accounts, you're able to always access the best prices. And Betstamp, as I said, streamlines this process for all users. Lepore, I can't say enough about Betstamp. It's just the best.
Guys, at the end of the day, betting is hard. We're all losers. We all lose way more than we win, let's be honest. So because betting is so hard, why would we not take advantage of every opportunity we could to do our very, very best when it comes to winning? And that's exactly what Betstamp provides with its line shopping. Bruno went over it. They got the money lines, the spreads, all comparatively. It's awesome. Get on your phone, download the app, and take advantage.
And not only does Betstamp connect you with all the major sports books, it also allows you to link your account so that your wagers from all sports books automatically sync. And to get you started, go download the app and use our referral code GFP. That's right. Our referral code is GFP. I will have it linked down in the description. Betstamp is the way to go if you're a sports bettor and you actually want to make some money betting on sports. Michael Myers sure is scary, but the last thing you need is to be hairy this Halloween. Luckily, our friends at MANSCAPED launched their 4th generation performance package to make sure your pumpkins get the ultimate carving experience on this spooky day. Turn your bite-sized treat into a king-size candy and join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our promo code GFP20. Lepore, these products, they just continue to amaze.
Yeah, and these reads continue to amaze me as well. Everyone, Halloween's coming. Why not have a costume where you show your body, go as Conan the Barbarian, show that chest. But before you do that, make sure to get the Lawnmower 4.0 performance package. Make yourself look clean, make yourself look smooth, just like Arnold did in the movie, and make your stamp on that Halloween party.
You said it, Lepore. On Halloween, you want to look your best. Everyone's revealing all parts of themselves on Halloween, okay?
Yeah.
And if you're not using the Lawnmower 4.0 and all the other amazing products that you can get at manscaped.com, I don't know what the hell you're doing, gentlemen. So get on it. Go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20. That's manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our promo code GFP20. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no excuses with this team, but I do see where you're coming from. And honestly, it is kind of hard to disagree because this team has been through a lot. And as we've seen, no one really cares about the regular season. And we shouldn't say that the regular season doesn't mean anything because of course it does, because of course you want to get home ice, especially in the first round of the playoffs. Ideally, you want to get home ice throughout the playoffs. So I don't want to sit here and say the regular season means nothing, but with this team, after all the first round disappointments, the regular season maybe means a little bit less to this team than every other team in the NHL. And I don't want to give them a pass for not beating Montreal and Arizona. I think it's embarrassing. And I think those are teams that you should walk all over. 2 teams that are going to be in the lottery for Connor Bedard and have a really good chance at landing Connor Bedard. So I see what you're saying, Lepore. I think there's a little bit of that. Like, why are these guys going to come in against an Arizona Coyotes team, game 4 of the season, and be super motivated to win? But you still got to win this game, man. What's so frustrating is that I think this team just comes out and thinks that they're so good that they don't really need to really come in with fire and passion and try to beat teams like this. But they always get bitten in the ass. And we saw it again, just like we saw last season. Lost to Arizona twice. They lost to Buffalo. They lost to Montreal. Like, they keep losing to bad teams, and I can't stand it.
Yeah. But and even too with last night's game, like I remember there was the one in Arizona last year where Vladar made like 55 or 60 saves and they lost 2-1. It's like, well, if it's one of those, whatever. Like those happen. Like last night, they were shit. I'm sure everyone saw how there were boos raining down at Scotiabank after the second period. I'm going to sound like a total dinosaur with what I'm about to say, but what popped in my head as I was watching this game was, had I paid money for tickets, and what everyone knows what tickets cost in that arena, to take, like one of my nephews or take my wife or take a buddy, I would be having a snap attack if I paid for that shit. And again, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur. These guys make millions of dollars. Leafs games are expensive. They have a responsibility to show up, and they did not. I would have been fucking rattled, Bruno, had I been at that game. Imagine that's the one game a year you take your kid, and you see that
$300-$400 on tickets, on parking, on food, and you
$40
see
for a hot dog. But I'm just unbelievable display by that team. Like, actually pathetic. Like, we often use words like pathetic or embarrassing. That was pathetic and embarrassing. But they look like they were practicing on an outdoor rink, having fun. Sorry, boys.
It was brutal, Lepore. And let's go over some of the things that happened in this game. So they're coming off that win against the Ottawa Senators. They're at home against the Coyotes, a team that has the best odds right now to finish dead last in the NHL.
Awesome.
And have the best chance at landing a generational player in Connor Bedard. You're at home in your own rink against the worst team in hockey. They were down 2-0 heading into the third period. So that's the first thing. Down 2-0 to the worst team in hockey heading into the third period. The Leafs tied the game at 2. They let Arizona take a 3-2 lead. And then the Leafs appeared to tie the game 3-3 with 37 seconds left. But then the NHL came charging in. Situation room came charging in to review a hand pass that happened 13 seconds before the goal was scored. Morgan Rielly bats the puck out of midair, right down to the ice. He gets tied up with Clayton Keller. Mitch Marner comes in, takes the puck, flips it into the zone. 13 seconds later, Alex Kerfoot ties the game, and it's called back.
Yep.
On an illegal hand pass.
Everyone's going crazy. Maybe these tickets were worth it. And then, we have a review. But
absolutely horrific, man.
It was just so NHL. And you explain it to me, because like a lot of people, like including myself on Twitter, were confused. So it was called a hand pass because it hit his hand, and then that next stick it touched was a Leafs player stick. So that's why it was called a hand pass.
It's very confusing because I will read the rule right now to everybody. The actual rule in the NHL rule book, Rule 79.1. A player shall be permitted to stop or bat a puck in the air with his open hand or push it along the ice with his hand, and the play shall not be stopped unless, in the opinion of the on-ice officials, he has directed the puck to a teammate or has allowed his team to gain an advantage, and subsequently possession and control of the puck is obtained by a player of the offending team, either directly or deflected off any player or official.
That's horseshit then, because that's not what it was. Like, under that definition, that's total horseshit.
I don't understand how they can deem that Morgan Rielly directed that puck to Mitch Marner.
Exactly. Like that was the word, like the verbiage that you read. I was like, yeah, no, that's not.
And that's the verbiage that the ref used when he was explaining the call on the ice. He said that the puck was directed to a teammate. He said number 44 directed the puck to a teammate. So how the hell, like, how is that conclusive enough to say that Morgan Rielly directed that puck to Mitch Marner? Because the puck hits Riley's hand, and at the same time, it looks like Keller's stick actually hits Riley's glove.
Yes.
The puck bounces right down, like directly down into like Riley's skates. Keller then even appears to touch the puck after it hits the ice. And then, Riley ties up Keller. Marner comes in there, takes the puck. I don't understand how that's a conclusive hand pass. Like, I do not understand. And I think the NHL's explanation is total bullshit, because I have that pulled up right now as well, Lepore.
Oh, like their actual explanation of that play?
So the NHL released an explanation of the call, and they said the situation room determined that Morgan Riley batted the puck with his hand inside the attacking zone before teammate Mitchell Marner subsequently gained possession and control. So that's another confusing thing. Is it the fact that he batted it down, and because his own team gained possession of the puck, that's a hand pass?
It's because they scored, Bruno, is what it is.
Yeah,
they looked at it, they scored.
Is that call made against any other team in the league?
Well, yeah, but I mean, at that moment. And I want to say straight out, I'm sure Bruno's in the same boat I am. I'm glad they lost. Because, and I'm more talking about that play. That could have been Carolina playing Nashville. Like, I want to have this talk. To me, again, like, I look at the wording they use, and with replay, when something's getting reviewed, whether it's hockey or another sport, my mindset always goes to, okay, why was replay brought into the sport? Why did we say, you know what, we need replay? And does this fall under that category? And I look at this play that you could watch in full speed 500 times and think nothing of it, and it's a goal and it's called back. That's not why we brought in replay, okay? If you have to watch something 100 times to deem that it shouldn't have been allowed, that's not why you brought in replay, and a goal shouldn't be reversed. And specifically to this one, with how long it took, okay, it was called a goal on the ice. We have a goal. So now we have to conclusively prove that there was a missed call, so for the goal to get called back. Did you see how long they were on the headsets and how many times they watched it? If you have to watch it in slow motion 15 times, it's not conclusive. Not conclusive. Like, I've said before, actually, the rule should be you should have real time speed. You shouldn't have looks. Everything looks 50 times worse in slow motion. So watch it a couple times. If you can't make a decision, well, that's not conclusive to overturn. It's not like, holy hell, if it's that bad, we see it. So the whole thing was total BS. And like, just the NHL, man. Like, people make the comments, imagine you're watching hockey for the first time, or you bring someone to a game, their first game. Like, you have to explain this to them. Come on.
You know what was crazy? So one of my good buddies was at this game, Lepore.
Oh,
he
fuck,
texted me
for him.
What's that?
I said I feel bad for him.
Oh, I know. I know. I feel bad for anyone who spent their hard-earned dollars to go to that Leaf game last night. But so my buddy texted me, and he's like, what the hell happened on that call? Because everyone in the arena had really no idea what the hell was going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because like, if you're watching the broadcast, you're listening, and you're kind of gauging what the officials are looking at, what the situation room is looking at. But people inside the arena were confused, thinking, what on earth is happening right now? And they didn't. And even when the refs made the call and explained the review, it was still confusing to a lot of people. So I had to explain to him kind of what happened. And it's crazy. Like, no one in the building really knew what the hell was going on. And Lepore, another thing I'll say that pissed me off about that call, you can't review minor penalties. So remember last year, someone pulled up the clip when Barrett Hayton hooked Auston Matthews, and Arizona came in and scored the game-winning goal in overtime to beat the Leafs. So you can't review stuff like that. You can't review a puck over glass penalty, but you can review a hand pass that we're not even sure was an illegal hand pass.
Yeah, to your point, puck over glass. Again, why we bring in replay? Baseball, they brought it in for fair and foul initially because it's like, well, it's black and white. If it's a mistake, it's a mistake. The two I would throw in for replay are puck over glass, because it's black and white if it got deflected or touched the glass, and the high stick thing where was it actually that guy's stick or a teammate stick or his own stick. They don't have replay for that. You have guys getting double minors that they don't deserve in intense situations. But this play, a goal gets called back and they can review it. Great point, Bruno. 100% accurate.
It's unbelievable, man.
Worst league ever.
I'm still stunned. And like you said, man, like the Leafs, they should never be in that situation. Like, they still played a bad game, and you should never lose to the Arizona Coyotes when you're a hockey team that's this good and that has, I mean, you can laugh at me if you want, that has Stanley Cup aspirations.
Yeah, I know that's already coming in. I already have people chirp me about like the President's Trophy discussions 4 games in.
Oh,
they did start 2-4-1 last year. I'm sure everyone remembers.
Yeah.
I mean, no one remembers or nobody cares now, but
it's painful, man. Let's talk about some other things that transpired in this game, Lepore. And I'm going to go to the post-game comments and let you know what Sheldon Keefe said.
Fill me in, because I shut it off and I went straight to bed. So you fill me in, Bruno.
Some interesting comments from Sheldon Keefe. So I won't even get into what he said about the hand pass, because he said that it could have gone either way. And I completely agree with him. Like, he didn't think it was conclusive enough for them to overturn that and call it a goal. But he made some very interesting comments calling out his elite players.
Good.
So he was asked, like, why'd you guys have a bad game today? Like, what was the difference tonight? Like, how did this happen, essentially? And Keefe said, our best people have not found their rhythm. The difference between us and Arizona is that we have elite players. Our elite players didn't play like elite players today and couldn't make a difference. And if you look at the score sheet, Nick Ritchie, former Leaf, who we ran out of town, has 3 goals this season. So far, he has more goals combined than Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner this season.
What's the stat? Like, I think in the amount of games played with Toronto, he had like 1 goal. And if you equal that amount of games with Arizona, he's got like 13 or something stupid. Oh, geez.
It's wild. Like, and of course he scored again last night. It's just the most Leaf thing of all time.
Yeah, I think it was like 18 times your money. I saw a few people put the bet in.
So what are your thoughts, Lepore, on Keefe calling out the team? Because, like, Matthews and Marner, I mean, Marner, I think, has looked okay. Matthews has not been playing very well. But also we can criticize Keefe to a certain extent that he doesn't have the team ready again. I know it sounds like a broken record, like, come ready to play. Even going back to the Babcock era, this team never showed up ready to play. Like, who are we blaming for this?
The whole thing, and I've heard that take of, like, Keefe and like him not getting them motivated. You always hear that, especially you always hear that in college football with, like, oh, the coach didn't have his young players motivated. If you're Auston Matthews and you make $11.65 million a year, what, you need to be kicked in the ass to get pumped up? Come on. Like, I don't buy that shit at all. I agree with you that Marner's been okay. He's at least been buzzing. He hasn't been at his best, but Auston Matthews has not been close to his potential. Like, if someone said Matthews has been bad, I wouldn't argue with them. Bad. And I mentioned his shooting percentage before. Well, he's not getting good chances. He's not creating chances for himself and stuff you don't know. But one thing I've questioned is it maybe his fitness? Like, he didn't come fully ready to go, and maybe it's causing a slow start. Because even remember last year too, I mean, he didn't start well. I remember, like, he was way back in the goal scoring race. So they were throwing out odds like 10-1 and 12-1, if I remember correctly, for him to win the Rocket. But doesn't look good, man. Matthews has this thing when he's on, he gets the puck and he's got like this, like, kind of smooth kind of turbo mode he goes in, and you'll know like first shift of a game, Matthews is ready to go tonight. I haven't seen it once this year. I haven't seen it once in 4 games. And sometimes we'll ask ourselves on this show, oh, is this subject concerning? There's a debate with this one because, what are we going to do? We're going to question a 60 goal scorer, back-to-back Maurice Rocket Richard winner, that, like, he's not going to turn it around. But to me, it's not even about the goals again. Kind of like it's not even about the wins and losses for the Leafs, about the performance. It's about the personality of this team. And I think that's what's getting everyone rattled, is that it's kind of the same old story. Even if this team was 4-0, but had played the same way they've been playing, I'd still have that thing in me that, doing a lot of questioning. And different teams have different character traits. What Leafs fans would love to see is a team playing angry. I forget which season it was. Maybe it was after Montreal, or it was the season before they lost to Montreal, or the season before that. But Marner said at the end of the season, this team has to come back pissed off. We're not seeing that. Again, even if they had won games, Matthews, Marner, like, they don't look pissed off. I mean, they're talented. Tavares looks really good, and he's come into this year motivated. Willie's finding the net, but I don't know. And then we can talk about the back end. Riley, Muzzin, Hall, did they look like they were ready to go and angry and they wanted to put their foot down on this season and get off to a great start? Not even close, man.
No, I think you nailed it, man. I need to see some more passion out of this team. And maybe that's, a lazy take and it's like us, yelling at the kids on the front lawn, like sort of take. But it's like, come on, man. You got to come in with a little bit more energy and urgency. And you got to play pissed off because I'm not seeing that from this team. And honestly, Lepore, I don't believe anything that any of these players say in their post-game press conferences, pre-game press conferences. Like, you could tell me you're going to come out ready to play the next game. You're going to tell me that you want to clean things up and you want to change this and that. And I don't believe anything any of these players say because this is the most, they're a predictable team in a way, but they're also extremely unpredictable because you just never know what team is going to show up. They're predictable in the sense that they lose to all these inferior opponents, but then you also just kind of don't know what team is going to show up on a night-to-night basis. I know we talked about on the last show how this team actually does bounce back after bad losses. But honestly, man, at this point, Lepore, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in the next game. I think they're going to win the next game because that actually has been their MO where they suffer a bad loss and then they bounce back. But I'll say it again. I just don't believe anything any of these players say at this point because it's been the same song and dance now for the last few seasons.
Yeah. One thing the Toronto Maple Leafs have very strong is their PR training. So these guys always say the right thing. But you made the point about people saying, we're jumping the gun or like we sound like old men. With this team's history, we're allowed to feel this way. These are the questions that have been thrown at this team. And that's what's so confusing to me. After what happened last year, did you not want to come out this year and everyone be like, holy fuck, Toronto's blowing everyone out? Like, and again, because all it means nothing regular season, but still, like, put that in everyone's mind. Like, get off to a great start and be humiliating opponents. Friggin' horrible. And it's like, where's that? And what I don't get either, this is kind of like a whole side topic. Stats are important. Okay. Like individual player stats, whether it's goals, whether it's your points, both in the way of getting paid, winning awards, recognition. Guys want to be the first star. Like, let's face it. Like, these guys, I almost said they read the paper. Speaking of sounding like a dinosaur, these guys go on Twitter. They're on NHL.com checking their stats. They're watching replays. They're keeping track of who's going to win these awards and first team all-star bullshit. When you play a team like, and I'll say no disrespect to Arizona, but it's disrespect. When you play a team like Arizona, people can say like, oh, Auston Matthews, he's not really motivated because it's like an inferior opponent and they're probably going to get the win. Austin, like, do you not want to go out there and score 3 goals? Yeah, you're playing an inferior opponent. Like, don't you want to win the Rocket?
It should be a stat padding night against a team 100%. Like that.
100%. Matthews, you scored 60 last year. Take it, punish these weaker teams. Let's get 65, 70 this year. Like that's what's concerning to me. That mindset's not there. Because I know that'd be my attitude. And I'm not trying to sound superior, but like, yeah, let's light it up. Let's get kind of some bullshit stat padding to get me paid more last time or get me that award. Like, that's what I don't get. Really and truly, I don't understand. From an offensive perspective, light it up. No one sees at the end of the year that in 2 games against Arizona, you got 7 or 8 points and nobody cares. It's how many points did that player get? And then when it comes to your contract negotiation, the other team's not like, well, you got a lot of your points against inferior opponents. Fuck you, pay me. So,
and you know what's bizarre, Lepore? I'm looking at Arizona's first 2 games against Pittsburgh and Boston. Yeah. They gave up a combined 96 shots on goal and 12 goals in those first 2 games. And the Leafs were only able to get 28 shots on goal and score twice against this team.
That was another reason why I knew. I saw that they allowed 6 in each game, and I'm like, wow, they're not going to allow 6 tonight. It's not going to keep because the Leafs. The Leafs
like, is it that these teams just come in and this is like their Stanley Cup final, whether it's Montreal on opening night, Arizona coming into Toronto, the Buffalo Sabres when they play the Leafs? Like, is it just that these teams get up and are so fired up to play this team and beat this team that that's what's causing all these horrible games against these inferior opponents? Like, is that an excuse?
I think it's not an excuse. I think it's not an excuse. Go screw yourself. There's no excuses here. But I think there's that little thing where, again, like what kicks a team up a notch? Like, let's face it, Toronto's the evil empire of the National Hockey League. Everyone hates them. I'm sure a lot of owners hate them. I'm sure a lot of management hates them. I've even heard people say the whole waivers thing, how it seems like Toronto's players always get picked off waivers. It's kind of like a smirk thing, like, fuck you, Toronto. Like, even if we don't need this guy, like we're going to pluck him off waivers. So again, no excuse, but like, it's that little thing. I'm sure in a lot of players' minds, a lot of coaches' minds, I want to stick it to Toronto. I know I would. Like, the game's on TV. Everyone's watching and it's going to be the first highlight shown. Let's go. Then there's a whole GTA thing of like players from the GTA playing at home. All their families are there. So it's a big game for them, but it's not, I think it's the reality. I think it's the reality of it. I've said before about the Maple Leafs that, and like comment down below what people think about this. And people might think this is a hot take, but performances like last night or like certain losing streaks, or how a player's affected by something negative happen and it continuing to keep continuing. It's almost a thing that'll just never leave Toronto. I don't care who's coaching, who the players are. There's too much media. The fans are too involved. There's too much attention. All the games are being shown nationally. I just think there's that'll never leave Toronto, of like the performance like last night where all the focus is on whatever. They can never relax. I guess that's the best way to put it. You go into last night's game relaxed and focused, you'll play well. Even a game like last night, there's still that little thing in the back of your mind, right? Everyone's watching. Like, what if I screw up? Or, we haven't played well this year. We got to get going. Like, they'll say gripping your sticks too tight. And again, people could say it's in other markets as well. But if it does exist, it's in Toronto. And I've always been of the take that it's never going to leave. It's just a reality of that market, and it is what it is. You go 3 games without a goal, you're going to get shit on. And if you went 3 games without a goal in Carolina, no one would notice. So you're not feeling pressure while you're feeling it in Toronto.
Yeah, playing in this Toronto market is a different beast, and you got to be able to handle it because you got to stay even keel. You can't get too high. You can't get too low.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a good thing that the Leafs are trained heavily when it comes to PR and just saying the right thing and not, getting too emotional about any result, because maybe that's the best way to approach playing in Toronto.
Yeah.
Lepore, I saw some rumblings last night on Twitter, and it's just maybe some people stirring the pot. Like, there's no like strong reports from like Elliot Friedman or guys like that. But do you think there's any chance that if we see another effort like this, if they, over the next 5 games lose 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, is there any chance that Dubas considers firing Sheldon Keefe and bringing in Barry Trotz or somebody else who's out there? I personally don't think it's going to happen. I still believe in Sheldon Keefe, even though I do think he has flaws. And I've talked about this before, where I think sometimes this team is a little bit too aggressive. And I played D. Like, that's my position. I love jumping into the play and getting points and scoring goals once in a while. Like, I enjoyed that as a defenseman, but I think sometimes this team is a little too aggressive, man. I don't know. And I know him and Dubas are super tight. They've climbed up the ranks together. It gets a great story. If they can somehow win a Stanley Cup together, like, it's just like a beautiful end to their story where they have climbed the ranks through all levels of hockey. Now they're in the NHL. But I don't know. That's why I don't think Dubas would fire him. But at some point, if this team needs another kick in the ass, like, is that the play that they go to, firing the coach?
Never say never, especially in a place like Toronto. We just touched on that. But to your point, it has to get bad enough for something like that to happen. This coach, since he started coaching the Leafs, has had one of the best records in the National Hockey League. I mean, talk about the playoff losses. It would have to get bad. Like, I think it wouldn't be like, oh, rough start. No, it would have to get bad for them to make a move. And for Dubas to pull the trigger or someone else to make that decision for him, it's complicated because of the connection, as you mentioned. So I don't know. Like, first of all, I don't see it getting bad enough that they would let Keefe go and move on, like to the point where they're desperate. I guess like the season is on, like now we're like, oh my God, is this team going to miss the playoffs? Like where they look like they're going to miss the playoffs and something has to happen. I don't think we're going to get there, / I hope we don't get there. And as far as coaches go, I always say that it goes into the team. Essentially, it's up to the team. When Babcock was fired, you could tell the players wanted him out of there. They didn't want to listen to him anymore. If Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, all the vets are okay with Keefe and like his like hockey IQ and what he brings, you can't fire him. Again, unless things get really bad. If it's like something on the fence, I don't see that happening. And I hate to we're having this discussion, Bruno, 4 games in. Like, God forbid, right? And the slow start last year, you thought they would have learned their lesson. Looking at, the end of the season, where they could have been in the standings, they could have avoided Tampa. No, just, yeah, I don't know. Or maybe like we can talk about other kicks in the ass, like a trade. If a trade it'll get to that point too. I remember last year when they did start 2-4-1, there were the trade rumors, like either Nylander or Marner gotta go. Like there was, again, it's Toronto, so everyone's fired up after 7 games. But as far as Keefe getting let go, I don't want to see it. And I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think it'll get bad enough that a decision has to be made. And I think that's the only point where it'll happen. If it has to be made, what do you think?
I'll bring up a stat. Since Sheldon Keefe took over the Toronto Maple Leafs, he has coached 189 games with the Leafs. They have the 4th best record in the NHL since he took over on November 21st, 2019. The only 3 teams that have a better regular season record over the last 189, 190 plus games are the Colorado Avalanche, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Florida Panthers. That's it. The Leafs are 4th. So since Sheldon Keefe took over, the Leafs have the 4th best record in the NHL. That's pretty darn good. They're 118, 52, and 19 under Sheldon Keefe. Pretty damn impressive. So I know we've seen a lot of trash with this team in the playoffs, losing to inferior opponents in the regular season. But you look at that record, I don't know, man, it's hard to fire a coach who's been that good in the regular season. And then thinking back to last season, as you said, Lepore, the awful start they got off to, they were 2-4-1 and then found a way to finish with a franchise record 115 points. So you give it a little bit more time. I think if this lasts a month, 2 months, then you start to get a little bit concerned. Yeah. But we'll chalk this up to early season bullshit, and we'll hope that they can turn it around. I don't think we're going to see Keefe get fired. I don't think we're going to see one of the core 4 get traded. And again, you could laugh at us and say this is a total overreaction, and it kind of is an overreaction to a certain degree. But this is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, this is the Toronto market. The fans are passionate, and they expect better out of this hockey team, plain and simple.
I was saying last night, I mean, every team has gross efforts. Every team goes on losing streaks, but the Toronto Maple Leafs are my favorite team, so I'm going to be fucking pissed off about it. As for Keefe, and like we'll just wrap it up with this, do you think there's that extra nudge in terms of pressure to Dubas or extra pressure on Keefe to win because the guy available is Barry Trotz, or would it not matter?
I think Barry Trotz lingering out there, I think it matters, man, because wherever this guy has gone, he has won. And the thing about Barry Trotz, and it's not even about that he's a winning coach and no matter where he goes, he finds a way to fix the team's problems. It's that he's so good defensively.
Exactly.
And that's been the issue with this team over the last, call it decade plus, right?
It mirrors Washington very well in the way that, like, they couldn't stop getting scored on. He comes in, they win the Stanley Cup.
Exactly, right? Where Alex Ovechkin and Backstrom and John Carlson, they were racking up all these points, winning all these games, winning President's trophies, but they couldn't defend at a high level and they couldn't win in the playoffs until Barry Trotz came in. So it's like you said, Lepore, a lot of that mirrors the situation we're seeing right now with the Leafs. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, I don't think Keefe is going anywhere, but things could get very interesting if this lasts 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I don't think it will.
Hopefully we don't have to talk about that point again.
Oh my God. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
Well, we got a lot off our chest. Angry old men, get off my lawn, as you said. hopefully some of these shows kind of get categorized as either, positive or negative. This was a negative one, and minus, to be fair, this might be the most negative one we've had in a long time, because even the game 7 loss to Tampa, I mean, it sucked and was shit, but in terms of actually dumping on this team, we haven't dumped on this team probably since the beginning of last year after their start. So hopefully things get a little bit more positive in Leafland and on the Gluttons For Punishment podcast.
And I cannot wait for all the haters to flood our comment section of this podcast, because I know it's coming. You think I don't see it? Leaf haters, you guys flood the comment section of the GFP podcast. The second anything bad happens to this hockey team, you guys are there.
Rent free, as I always say. That's people argue with the whole rent free thing. Do not tell me for a second the Leafs don't live rent free in every opposing fan base's heads. It's hilarious. Yeah. Anytime anything, Leafs, rent free.
Yeah, you said it. The Leafs are swimming in the heads of every fan base in the NHL, and I absolutely love it. All right. That is going to do it for episode 78 of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener or you've been listening for a long time and you really enjoy the show, it would help us out so much if you give us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you really enjoyed this show, do us a favor, everybody. Please smash the like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. For Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Hopefully the Leafs figure this out, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.